All right, so just a conversation around my experience in building a highly profitable, low stress, and exitable brand, and why I think this is important, especially around Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That's what the BFCM stands for, which, for those of you who aren't in the industry, tremendous opportunity, the biggest money-making opportunity in retail, and it has gone up every single year. So interesting. I like to study what the greats are doing and the giants in the industry. Amazon has recognized that just creating demand around a specific time doesn't have to be specific to this holiday. So what they did was they created Prime Day in July. They ended up making about $8 or $9 in that couple of day period. And they pressed the limit and they said, well, what if we could do it again? And so they introduced a second Prime Day in October strategically, and they doubled revenue again. So the last year they did about 14 to 15 billion in just these two kind of couple day periods. And what's interesting about this is they strategically put that demand before traditional Black Friday, because what we're realizing about consumers is that they do want to spend, they plan on spending, but they have a limited budget for spending. It's kind of like first come, first serve, which is what we're going to talk about, the importance of building community and creating demand for your invisibility for yourself. So they strategically jumped out in front of where everyone else is doing retail to capture their share of the market. So very smart. This is why I got into this industry, is because random people with very limited capital can make tremendous revenue. And so here are a couple of our clients who last year did just under $500,000 in a week. Another one did just same 420K in about a 3-week period. Another one did just under just under 400K. And this client started with us for the year. We have like a coaching program where we support brands in growing. We directly added about $1 million in revenue for them year to date. This was last year. And we actually helped one person achieve $1 million in about a week. And so these are random people you've never heard about. You probably have never heard about them. But the cool thing about this is you don't need to be a household brand. You can carve a lane for yourself in various industries.
What's the price point that they sold $1 million in?
So this was an apparel, and so their average price point, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, the importance of price point and bundling, but their average price point was like 50 to 70 bucks and like their average order value. But we've supported people who sell furniture for 700 bucks, jewelry for 1,500 bucks, average order value down to Apple iPhone accessories, which are like the AOV, the average order value is about 20 bucks. So across various industries. The thing here is a really cool illustration where two types of founders that we typically support. The founder on the left side, your left side of the screen, they're the visionaries that have a bunch of shiny objects, right? This is me, per se. I have, I'm always doing a million things. And my problem is lack of focus, right? I start something great at starting ideas, but until I got better awareness, I was bad at executing, right? Now I'm better at delegating and recognizing my weaknesses. But we work with a lot of founders who are like this, and their problem is that it's not like they are shy of ideas. They just have too many ideas and they're not really seeing execution fully on any one, because there's very limited, there's a very low barrier of entry to get into e-commerce. Unlike some of your industries, right, where it requires a ton of capital to get started. Literally for like 10, 20K, you can start up a brand. You can get a website up, you get some product samples, have a small marketing budget. So because of that, it creates a lot of opportunity for people to lose focus. The other kind of founders we work with is on the other side, and these guys have an idea but no plan. Or they have a goal but no idea, sorry. And so they know they want to get into e-commerce. They know they'd like to build a 7-figure business, but they don't really have an idea. We support them some, but most of the founders we support are the people who have great ideas. They're visionaries, but they lack implementation and integration. And they create the bottleneck for themselves because they can't duplicate and replicate themselves. And they can't hire, which is where you come in. So today's talk is just going to be about what's strategy. And strategy is a fancy word for, my definition is allocating limited resources to match with your unlimited options, right? And so the strategy we're going to talk about is kind of that red dot right there, which is not only that I've seen play out better for me, but at this pace, we've supported about 550 coaching clients. We're all at like 6 or 7 figures. And we have taught thousands through our partnerships with Shopify and Amazon and all of that. And just a little bit about me, kind of like, why should you listen to me? So we started and scaled our brand pretty quickly from 0 to 60,000 a month, which was a big deal for me back in 2016 when e-commerce was new. And I got a lot of great experience with that because I got an opportunity to meet Mark Cuban and pitch for Shark Tank. Amazon has an internal accelerator, which I delivered the keynote for a year ago. I partnered with Shopify. I was one of only 16 creators that they've partnered with to educate their founders. We have a weekly coaching program where we do things like this with them, with 2,500 of their merchants on a weekly basis. They kind of license our IP. And Forbes recently featured us for how we built and sold our business. So these are not really bragging points, more so to say that I've been doing it for a while and I've figured out a couple of things, not only with me, but for the other founders that I've supported, plus all of the thousands of others that I've been coaching and training. And so the thing that is really cool is that last year we helped our clients generate $33.5 million in sales on Shopify. This year it's going to be larger because we're attracting bigger clients. Like one of our clients is doing 10 mil in and of itself. And we are consulting with someone who just launched and they're doing about 800K a month. So that's going to skew the numbers a little bit higher. But I'm proud of that because this is a random idea we started 2.5 years ago. And how we got here, which I was explaining to you, is a culmination of a lot of experiences. This was my mentor in Atlanta. He's in private equity, and he introduced me to the world of leverage and scaling and flipping businesses. And so Keith, amazing guy, but this is still the smartest person I've ever met in my life. Sorry, Keith.
That's all right.
This guy, I met him at a networking event, and he drove off in a drop-top Ferrari blasting reggae music. And I was like, at the Buckhead Club, I'm like, this is inappropriate. Like, who is this guy? This guy's an asshole. I like this guy, right? And so turns out he's Jamaican. We're both Jamaican. We both started college at 16. I'm like, okay, this is good. The difference is he went to Princeton at 16. I went to Broward College. And so then he went on to be the second black president of Harvard Law. The only guy that has done that with him is this guy that we may have known, Barack Obama, that was president, right? So, and then he went on to be a Rhodes Scholar and graduate with his PhD from Oxford in 2.5 years. So by 25, he had accomplished all of this and started the first private equity fund in the Caribbean, raised $50 million at 26, went on to do a bunch of stuff. And he sold to Blackstone and Dell like $500-ish million and like right under 900 million around the time that I met him. So that's why he could blast reggae music and leave the Buckhead Club in a drop-top Ferrari with no care. But I shadowed him every chance that I got and learned a little bit about private equity, helped him start his family office and do deals. Started doing deals myself, raising a couple $1 million in 2014 for different deals. And I realized that we were writing checks to founders who were operators, what we technically called them. And I realized that they were getting the best deal. And so I wanted to become an operator to learn both sides of the fence, like what to look for to invest and like reverse engineer a better exit for myself. So I got into e-commerce at the time because I saw the opportunity. And so that's what we started doing. And kept scaling the business, made multiple 7 figures, and then lost my ad account. And the problems with e-commerce started to become apparent, meaning one big issue is that it is heavily cash flow intensive. Easy to start, hard to scale because it has a negative cash flow. So if we're at 100K this month and we want to do 200K in the future, we have to figure out how to buy 200K worth of inventory on 100K worth of revenue and profit. So when I lost my ad account, it made me realize that I had $94,000 in Amex debt and leases and employees and all this other stuff. And so I really only had 2 months of cash left, and it blew my mind how we were doing so well, but had so little cash. And so I call it a Ponzi scheme, largely because you have to keep bringing in new revenue to satisfy your prior commitments. And so we rebuilt our business a lot healthier. This is kind of a CEO dashboard I designed. Not our greatest month, about 109K. What I love about it though is we kept 50K in profit after shipping, discounts, advertising. We're doing about $1,000 a day in advertising. And so I rebuilt a really high business. At the time when we got acquired, it was like 46% EBITDA, which is 2 to 3 times like the industry standard. And so we just kept doing that. Fortunate I had people like David and other turnaround guys to help really direct and steer my path. And so we eventually got acquired, and that's what brought me here today. But the cool thing is, even though we're doing this and having great times, my personal revenue as a founder sucked. My wife sent me this. That's 94 cents, by the way. That's me. That's G Personal. She sent me this on the way to speak at Amazon's keynote, and she was like, remember when this is the reality we lived in, right? We were Googling how to launch on Amazon, and now you're helping others do that. And so I can now share more because of my non-compete's done about what happened. And this is some of the secrets we're going to share. Because none of you are necessarily in e-commerce, the rest of this presentation is going to be more so like what mistakes to avoid and opportunities to get into it. So a while back, I talked about the $1 million week for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Well, the reality is it caused them to go out of business. And we see that mistake a lot because part of our IP is this blueprint foundation of building our business. Just like a tripod, most people focus on scale and marketing only, which is the case with them. They started with us doing 40K a month. My big thing is I've managed about $3 million in advertising. So I had this combination of like private equity strategy business stuff and direct response marketing. And that's why I went into e-commerce. It's like a good combination. And so a lot of people came to me for that. And within a couple of weeks, we helped them get $80,000 in their first Black Friday. 12 months after that, they scaled up to $1 million. And so the problem is I warned them a lot to not go after that target because it was clear they didn't have their cash flow and finances in place. And even worse, their operations sucked. So what happened was they oversold what they didn't have. They didn't even know what they had in inventory. They just kept sending it, right? Yeah, more sales, more sales. After the smoke settled and the champagne popped, they realized that they oversold by hundreds of thousands of inventory. And so they took whatever loan was first available to them, which is these merchant cash advance loans that take a percentage of revenue and kill cash flow. And that started. And they oversold so much they exceeded the capacity of their manufacturers. And so their manufacturers are on back order. And so by the time they actually started sending out product, they had about 500 negative reviews and chargebacks. And the Shopify froze their merchant accounts. PayPal froze their merchant accounts. And they just went in a downward spiral. They were out of business in 6 months. So part of my responsibility now is not only teaching marketing, but also finances and operations. And there are foundations, strategy, and tactics around this. So tactics are the things that a lot of people are going for, like what's the latest trend and like what's working now, but they die out after a couple of months. Our focus is really on helping 6 or 7 figure businesses set proper foundations across all categories so that they have what they need to scale. And so kind of getting started, there's a lot of resources, small business development centers, free resource programs to help people start. At 7+, you have the capital to bring on smart people, but kind of in that $500,000 to $1.5–2 million range is where we like to play, because that's like no man's land where a lot of brands go to die, because it's kind of probably the biggest business you've done, certainly in this industry, so it's new to you, but then you don't have 6 figures in salary to bring on someone who knows how to do this stuff. So you have to figure out a lot of it on your own. Kind of my evil plan too with this is also an underserved market for private investors. Most private equity like messing with people after they've cleared $1 million and like have EBITDA like $250,000 plus. And so for us, what has been the hypothesis in our strategy is if we can serve 500 people, we can handpick the best opportunities, get in with them earlier, invest in them undervalued, and help add value to them more than just capital, strategy, resources, et cetera. and get in early on a couple of ideas, help them get over to where a lower middle market likes to invest and then cash out. So that's been my evil plan. It's been working pretty good. I've done that with about 2 deals now with very little out of pocket, kind of consultant for equity, which has worked really well. So what I've seen from that, which is the biggest opportunity for you guys, is most people think to start with product and then build around it. In this industry, it's quite the opposite. You have to build with community first and then back into a product. So when we launched our brand, I didn't say what we did. We sold grooming products for African American men. It's kind of a really cool niche, not a lot of competition. And what was interesting about it is we never really thought we were doing that. What we thought we were doing is we were building a community of growth-oriented African American men. And we just happened to monetize that relationship through these grooming products. But it really could have been anything. And so we served community first, built that up, and that created a moat around competition. Because the downside with e-commerce, especially on Amazon or different platforms, is your sales are public. And so after a while, you no longer have first mover's advantage, and you have to create a moat around your competition. So the best way to do that, especially competing against big businesses, is through having a community. If you think about some of your favorite brands, like I know, Keith, you're into working out, there's probably some diehard like CrossFit brands or workout brands that you just buy them for whatever reason, just because they understand your community. And if Nike or some other big player tried to enter into the market, just because you understand them and you believe they understand you, would create a moat around you. That's the kind of idea here, is to try to find these little niche groups of, I call it person, pain, promise, a specific person or individual that you want to target, and a pain point in their business or their life that you want to go after, and a promise that you can make to them. So ours were like growth-minded African-American men with beards that were entrepreneurs or in corporate America that wanted to feel confident about their grooming. So at the time, what I recognized in myself was I spent years in private equity and kind of finances. I wasn't allowed to grow a beard. Kind of like trusted advisor, that kind of thing. You're not allowed to grow a beard at the time. Now it's a little bit different. And so when I wanted to groom myself, when I went and I launched my beard when I got let go from my job. So my beard is like a representation of me being an entrepreneur, which is kind of funny. But I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to be like, like entertainer or an athlete kind of thing. Like I still wanted to present well and wanted my beard to match the rest of my confidence. Still wanted to show up and raise money and do deals. And there wasn't a space for me to like fit into that world. And so I just created it. And so we would have this community of people who were making partner, just sold their business for 20 mil, got an investment from Goldman. And like, it was a different type of community. And we would have these meetups, these networking events where we would just collect and gather people together. And it built an amazing community. I really think whatever we sold, people would have bought just because they were really there to network with other people. And also the other thing that we did is I told my journey of why I was doing this, and a lot of other people resonated with that. And so I just found 50,000 versions of me that were in the world, which is a lot easier to communicate to and build a community. I have a slide on this, which is wild to me. Let me get to this. This is a wild stat. We had somebody buy from us 46 times over a 2.5-year period from 2018 to 2021. That's wild. We sold beard oil. This guy down here, Will Watkins, bought 30 times. In one of our meetups, we would have these quarterly meetups at like a local establishment. One of these guys drove 3 hours to make it. And we saw Will Watkins. Will Watkins didn't even have a beard. He had a goatee. And we're like, Will, why in the hell are you buying our stuff 30 times? And he said, I just love being a part of this community. He's a VP of sales now. Now he's a director at Salesforce. And he was just like, I'm looking for my tribe. And I like what you guys represent. It's the quality that I represent. I buy it for people on my team, buy it for my family members. And that was the thing that kept Procter & Gamble and all these other big competitors out, because they would literally copy our exact thing, and we would get our tribe, our community, defending us in the comments. So you guys are trying to rip off Fresh Heritage. And we just had people defending us and telling our story. So that's the first thing that people don't get right. The brands that are scaling surround themselves with community first and just sell whatever the hell the community wants to buy. The second biggest problem is starting with too many SKUs too fast. The math is part of my journey. I happened to meet the product manager who launched $2 billion ideas, two separate $1 billion ideas, Swiffer and Febreze at Procter & Gamble. And I was fortunate to spend some time with him. And he gave me a simple math equation. And he was like, how'd you find $2 billion ideas? And he said, I just turned down a lot of things. And I only went for things where P times Q equals B, where price times quantity equals $1 billion in opportunity. And so you just like create your own equation, whether it's 100 mil, 10 mil, a mil, whatever. And it narrowed my lens. It's not that I was trying to come up with a bunch of opportunities to equal $1 million. I was trying to find one single thing that I can sell, P times Q equal 100K per month or $1 million. And that really helped me define what I was looking for, because I would come up with good ideas to serve the community. And if it didn't back into my equation, I just put it on hold for now. And the math to every $1 million business in e-commerce is really 3 to 4 products that you sell 30 times a day. That's it. So if you have one product you sell for $30-ish a day, or $30-ish total, if you sell 30 of those per day and you eventually find 2 or 3 others to support it, you have $1 million business. So 4 products individually selling 25 to 35 times a day is $1 million, and you just replicate that. Oftentimes, like with our product, we had one product doing 100K a month by itself. And so you don't need to try to go wide with your ideas. You just need to go deep and try to find one that the majority of your audiences are using, and you could just create stickiness. The third thing is that I see a lot of brands doing well is there are only 3 ways to grow this business, largely in any business. Let me skip here, go to this one. Is 3 main things. There's a couple of other subways, but there are still the 3 largest ones. You get more customers, you impact or increase how often they buy, and you increase how much they spend each time they work with you, right? And so a simple formula for that for e-commerce is 100,000 visitors to your site, because e-commerce is a math equation. You get a 1.5% conversion rate, meaning you have 1,500 customers who buy, and they spend $50 with you, or $75 in revenue. Well, if you just increase each of these things by 30%, you double your business. And so oftentimes it's not about trying to figure out new things, it's just about doubling down on what works. And so because math makes sense, this illustrates it. So a 30% increase in conversion jumps you up to 1.95, not a huge deal. And that leads you to 1,950 customers at $50. Now your revenue is 97 grand. If you increase your average order value by 30%, now you're at 126K with the same traffic, the same staff and everything. So part of the opportunity here is realizing how you can do more with what you have by bundling things together, by adding, I like to call this like supercharging the transformation. So if we were here to help people regain their confidence in their beard, where they had confidence still at work and board meetings and meeting with their advisors with this new facial hair look, right? They didn't want to grow facial hair in exchange for being diminished value at work or losing deals. So it's how can you create win-win? Well, what other things can they use to help them with this transformation, right? Maybe it's grooming tools, maybe it's additional type of products. And so add in additional things to what they were already buying from you once you create that hero SKU or hero product was really essential for them to be able to make more with their same customers. So instead of trying to go out and get new customers the whole time, we figured out how can we just get more from the existing customers. That's where we got these 30, 40, 50, or 30, 40, 46 purchases from customers. So I would say those are the couple of mistakes and a couple of opportunities right now for e-commerce. I'm going to pause and get some thoughts and feedback on that because I've been talking for a lot. What resonates or what questions do you guys have?
When I first started my business, one of my manufacturers brought me out to their manufacturing facility in Indiana, and they had a couple of professors come in and teach us the whole pyramid about selling too much, double your sales, and you wind up not enough cash flow, and you wind up going out of business. And so that's always resonated with me, and it's interesting to hear you expound upon that. So that certainly resonates with me. It's a good point to remember, because people don't talk about that. They all go for that rocket sale and don't realize that you need all the support to be able to back that up.
100%. I appreciate that. There's a quote somewhere here on the slide that I can't find right now, but it says essentially, yep. It's not that we need to learn new things. Mostly we just need to be reminded of the old things that we know. And that's a perfect example of it, right? Instead of chasing new shiny things, it's just going back to the foundations of business. And like certain things, they last decades. And that's the thing that I try to lock in on. One thing you didn't ask, but it's worth mentioning, is another mistake is people try to solve the wrong problems first, and like priority matters. And so in the beginning phase, you're not in the profit maximization phase. You're in the product market fit phase. And so a common mistake I see, even with those customers who are very smart, is they out the gate were trying to maximize margins and they overinvested in inventory. Meaning, tangible way, you were probably better off buying $50,000 worth of stuff for $10 a pop than buying $150 of inventory at $6 a pop, even though you make less, but you're invested $100,000 more in order for it to work. So you're less nimble in adjusting to the market. Even if you overpay on a SKU item or a COGS item, it's better to have less total invested in it because you could always work on margins after you scale. But just, you didn't ask that, and it probably wasn't brought up, but that's a big common mistake I see too. We have a client that we just brought on. She has $100 million of unsold inventory that's hard to move because she got it at so cheap. She was like, oh yeah, I'll overinvest. Really, she was better paying 2 to 3 times per item and just being $50K in debt, right? Versus $1 million, so.
So you spoke about the community-based. Do you have clients that grow the community outside of themselves? I mean, it was very personal for you on your particular journey, right? You built that community, and then, which I love, Myron Golden says that too. I don't know what to sell you until you tell me what you want to buy, right? Which it was great to hear you say that. But do you have anybody that uses influencers and that way to build a community that way, opposed to building it organically to start? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we had a client that I pointed out here. We helped her drive $1 million in revenue. She has never shown her face in the brand. But what she did was she built the brand around her because it's easier to understand her, and she just found influencers that represented her. So for her, it was important to build like a race agnostic, kind of gender agnostic brand. And so she just found a handful of influencers to build up the brand with. Even with my brand, I knew some of the things that were going to require change. Was that I had no real knowledge of like chemistry or biology, or like I wasn't a hair expert. And so one of the first things we did was we found a biochemist who happened to be Black, happened to have a big beard, and he actually led all of the early promotions. And so I kind of told him what to say and scripted it. And then our second and third videos were actually paid actors also. So I didn't actually show up on camera until 5-6 ads down. Because I knew what needed to happen to convert our customers, like the credibility of someone who had the credentials and like went to school for it. And then we had paid actors from that were women, because grooming is influenced largely by women. Like they are trying to do this in pursuit of companionship. And so it was a lot better message from attractive women telling men that, beards are in now. It's not, it's a new day. And we actually love seeing men with beards, and me trying to tell a man that. And so it is very common to not be the face of it. I guess the main part of it is just choosing a community that you understand, even if you don't want to be the face of it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, but you obviously have clients that work that model without a problem.
Yeah, it's not an issue. To that day, she's been in business for about 5 years, and she's up to like 3 million a year now. She's never showed her face. Like, no one knows that she runs it.
I have a question. How do you build a community around when the problem that people are having that you're fixing and serving, whatever, is something that they're sort of like ashamed or embarrassed about? As an organizer, a lot of folks that I work with, don't want to necessarily admit or talk to their friends about the problems that they're having maintaining their household. Any ideas?
Yeah, I was telling Keith I was going to talk about politics, and so this is like a good intro into that with whatever your thought is around
Timely discussion.
around the election and who your candidate and your choice was. This isn't a right or wrong or who's right or who's better conversation, but just an observation of what I see work from a business standpoint. And it's interesting because part of the things that I saw the Trump campaign do really well is they recognize that decisions are not made logically. They are made first subconsciously, then attached to an emotion, and then you search for logic. That's why people on the Democratic side, they're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And they're trying to argue logic, but they did away with that and just spoke to emotions and thoughts that people were probably internalizing, but afraid to say out loud. And so that creates an opportunity for you too, to get into the minds of your customers and to think about that unorganized person that is too ashamed to admit it out loud, what's going through their heads? What other ways can you connect with them and talk about that without making them feel bad about the way they're thinking or the things that they're doing, but figuring out a way to bring them up. An example of that is some of our clients, we work with a lot of retail, like spas, med spas, and they also sell retail or they want to sell retail to stop exchanging time for money. And a big thing there is going after older women that are kind of ashamed to admit that they look at themselves and think they're getting old, but they think it. And so it's about creating content that resonates and attract those types of customers and taking a positive spin on it to not allow them to feel bad. So one specific thing that we do there is just call it out. Everybody thinks that being younger is more attractive, but it's not. And just stating the things that they want to think, but they may not have the permission to. And then the other thing is being pro-age versus thinking about aging as a bad thing, and just creating content around it, 5 makeup tips for women over 50, and just doing things to support them in that way. So just think about what they may be thinking and find a positive spin to create content that attracts them. It's my long way of saying that answer. Is that helpful?
Yes. Yeah.
And because I know that you have customers, there are 3 questions that we have our new clients ask. Because a lot of the times people grow and they don't really know why they're growing because they're getting customers for a whole bunch of different reasons. And so if I ask, why should someone buy your product versus your competition, I typically don't get good answers. And so 3 questions you can ask your current customers is, why'd you buy from me? If you saw a coworker or a family member on our website, what would you say to them to convince them to buy? And how has your life changed or improved since becoming a client? And that will start to help you understand, because there's all the things that you think are why your clients buy from you, and then there's the things that actually resonated with them.
Right.
And so those 3 questions will help you just get into the minds of your clients, really to understand the transformation, and you should talk about the transformation as to what you offer. Cool. Shameless plug. I could support you guys with all this stuff. We have a structured coaching program. May not be the best tool for you, but we support in 2 ways. We have a structured coaching program. Typically, what happens there is if you empower a manager or someone over this project, instead of that may not have the experience, you can pay for them to join our coaching program, and they could work with us in our group with other founders, and they get one-on-one time with us, plus blueprints and curriculum to kind of self-study. We've created almost like an online MBA for direct-to-consumer. And then we also secondarily do consulting, where we just act as advisors to think through ideas, think through strategy, and help your team execute. So if either of you or any of you are interested in that to now or at some point, we'd love to chat and support you. Appreciate that. Well, thanks for your time, everyone.
It's great to meet you.